I'm sure they'll be taking that up. I'm sure the Prime Minister, if he were in Lakemba today, this is where he'd be. And I'm here representing him. As you know, the Prime Minister gets to many events over the course of the weekend and over the normal week, and he was very keen for me to be here today. I was very keen to be here today. Not the first time I've been here many times, and was here just recently, speaking from these very steps to a very large community.
Minister, the Prime Minister couldn't be here today, as you mentioned. Do you think it'll be helpful if he minutes? Do you think this is a must in the future? Well,
you're assuming that he hasn't, and you're assuming that he's not doing that today. So I'll leave that to the Prime Minister's office to respond on those specific matters about his program. But he is very supportive of this. He's supportive of it, and the government is supportive of it, because this is part of a broader initiative that is funded by the federal government to do exactly what you're seeing on show, to basically try and shake away misconceptions people might have. I know many people in my own community in the Sutherland Shire, they have questions about Islam, and here's the opportunity to ask them, and I think that's a great initiative. Any others on that topic?
Lots on other
topics. Okay. Let's go to other topics, shall we?
Just on others, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We had Bill Shorten today fronting the Australian Christian lobby, and he was reiterating his support for gay marriage. Should he have been doing that there?
Well, that's a matter for Bill, what he brings up and where he brings it up, and he has his view on that topic. Other members have their own views on that topic. I'm a big supporter of marriage. I think it's great, and as you've heard from the Sheikh here today, the Islamic community also strongly, I think, identifies with the institution of marriage, and I'm always very happy to be in a place where that's confirmed.
But is the government's view on same-sex marriage likely to change?
Look, I'm a keen supporter of the existing arrangements, and the government has no plans in this area. Frankly, we have very significant issues to be dealing with in national security and the economy, and that really has the government's focus.
So it's on the back burner.
Minister, the opposition leader has also called for the Syrian and Iraqi refugees that you said will be guaranteed or will be given 4,400 of them will be given refugee asylum seeker visas to Australia. It's called for that to be separate to the humanitarian intake. Is that something you're willing to consider?
Well, over 1,000 of those 4,400 places for Syria and Iraq for people coming under our refugee and humanitarian program have already been filled, and they're already on the way here, and many of them have already arrived. And so that program is delivering on what we said it would do. Now, that's part of our intake, and that intake has been made possible because prior to the government's success in stopping the boats, those places were going to people who had already arrived illegally on boats. And so being in a position where we can actually free up places under our program to do exactly this, to provide support to those who are affected by the Iraqi and the Syrian conflict. The government is very pleased we're able to do that, and as I've said, of those over 4,000 places, over 1,000 have already been taken up. We've moved very swiftly, as we promised we would.
Minister, just on the gay marriage issue again, Mr Shorten has called for Mr Abbott to hold a conscience vote within the party. Would you support that?
Well, the matter isn't even before the parliament. There's no policy of the government before the party room. So, as I said, the government is focused on issues of national security and economic management, and that's where, frankly, our focus is, and I'm sure will remain.
Is your view that there should be a conscience vote if it does come to the party room?
Look, I think I've covered that topic well enough.
Can I ask you a different topic?
Sure.
In New York today, people who've had direct contact with Ebola patients in Africa are going through mandatory quarantine now. Should that happen here?
Well, that's a matter for the Minister for Health and particularly the Chief Medical Officer. Now, the Department of Immigration and Border Protection, particularly the Australian Customs and Border Protection Service, will respond to whatever requirement those agencies believe is necessary from the health professionals to ensure that the response we're providing on our border is appropriate. Now, we're in a position to respond as required and have been from the start. But this is a matter appropriately led from the health portfolio, and Minister Dutton has done an outstanding job on that, and we've been lockstep with him on this every day.
So are you aware of any plans on that?
Well, again, we will respond, and we're always ready and able to respond to whatever level of response the Minister for Health and the Chief Medical Officer say is necessary. The issues of quarantine are, at the end of the day, a health judgment, and health professionals and experts have got to advise the government on when something like that is and should be necessary.
Still on overseas issues, we know that obviously the pilgrimage is happening. Does the government have any concerns that people making that trip to Mecca will go on to Syria and Iraq at all?
Well, the process leading up to the Hajj was one that the Customs and Border Protection Service can engage directly with the Islamic community on, and Roman Quabbalik, the new chief executive of the Customs Agency, was directly involved in those consultations, and we had very good feedback. A lot of, again, it was a bit like today. Today we've got an open question section on what's happening in Islam here at the Lakemba Mosque and the mosques all around the country. But on that day, the questions were being asked of Customs about their processes and their systems. And so I think that went very well, and we had a lot of understanding and patience from the Islamic community. What the Customs and Border Protection Service can do is, where they have advice and instruction from the other law enforcement agencies, Federal Police, ASIO and others, and the law permits people to be prevented from departing, then that's what Customs does. But that is very much a matter for those other agencies to provide that advice.
So mild concerns?
Sorry? No.
Just specifically on the people that have already been granted refugee status from Iraq and Syria, will that come out of the already existing humanitarian intake, once again, the 13,000 plus that you've already set aside?
That's right.
It will come out of the already.
Of course, that's the government's policy.
Do you accept then that by quarantining the number from humanitarian intake for Syrian and Iraqi refugees, you're disallowing other refugees?
No, I don't, because, as I said, we've freed up. In the last year of the previous government, the number of special humanitarian visas that were made available was 500. This year, there are 5,000. And that's because we've stopped the boats. And that's what to date, and that has been our objective all along. So we have freed up places in the program because of the success of our border protection policies. If the opposition want to suggest that it should be done over and above the intake, well, that would come at a significant cost, and Mr Shorten should outline how he's going to meet that cost.
You were mentioning about working with other agencies on different matters. In terms of passports that have been cancelled, does the government have a figure as to how many it has cancelled?
Well, it's
and if those people were travelling to Iraq and Syria?
Well, the passports cancelling is done by the Minister for Foreign Affairs on the advice of the ASIO, which goes through the Attorney General, and my understanding of those numbers is well over 50. It could be well more than that by this time. The cancelling those passports is the most effective way of preventing people from making that travel. And then it's a matter of ensuring that the process at the airport, and where people can on occasion seek to impersonate others, and that can be a real challenge at the airport, and our officers are well trained in those matters. As you know, we've put in place counter-terrorism unit officers at all the major airports, and that has uplifted the level of professionalism, access to intelligence and other things to prevent that from occurring. And so that's what's been put in place. That's part of the $150 million that was put into border controls as part of the $630 million counter-terrorism response.
Sure, and
the last one, sorry guys.
And still on the counter-terrorism, we've obviously seen a teenager from Bankstown appear in an ISIS video.
Yeah.
What should happen to that individual?
Well, that individual is, I think this is a terribly sad and tragic tale of a young man who has fallen victim to the most barbaric and brutal betrayal, frankly, of his own religion in what was put inside his head, taken away from his own family here in Australia and put over there and paraded in that puppet-like way. That young man may not see out the conflict at all. And my thoughts are with his parents and with his family. I mean, they must be, as I know many in this community, are just completely devastated by seeing their young people being taken up in this. And as a government, initiatives like today are about supporting this community to get the right and positive message out to their young people and to the broader community about what Islam's all about. And I don't want to see these young men being compromised and being inflicted in this way. I don't want to see them go over there and get involved in these barbaric and medieval acts, these murderous acts. And if he's over there, well, obviously on the way back, if he does choose to come back, he'll be coming to the attention of the appropriate law enforcement authorities. But that said, let's just reflect on his family and the terrible series of decisions that he's taken to put himself in that situation. I think days like today are as much about preventing that happening as anything we do on the border in law enforcement. And that's why I really want to commend Samir Dandan, a good friend and a great leader in this community, for this initiative. Thank you very much.
That's the Immigration Minister Scott Morrison speaking outside the Lakemba Mosque in Sydney's southwest as part of National Open Day. The US President has warmly embraced a Dallas